Thank you so much to my dear Sister Shanti and the sisters and brothers of Butuan. It is my great pleasure and honor to have a very close connection with the Philippines since many years. In fact, practically since the beginning, all those years ago. And thinking about the topic today, time for healing, I think it's a good idea to just take a look at time and the times we are living in, first of all, because these are very challenging times, very unusual times. It has become a new normal because we have been for 7 or 8 months, and in some cases more than that, under lockdown, semi-lockdown, behind masks, and there are many of us who know people who have suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic, who have actually passed away as a result of it, and it has changed the life of everyone in the world irrevocably. And because it is a pandemic, we're also thinking about how to heal, how to become immune, how to not get infected or affected, and to manage in the midst of all of this. But behind all that, there are other levels of concern about time and concern about healing. So I think what the COVID-19 pandemic has done for us is to make us very aware of the fragility of life and the ephemeral nature of the world as we knew it. We can no longer say the world as we know it because it keeps on changing, creating uncertainty, instability, and insecurity. And so all of us find ways to talk about this, but we also need to talk about it in ways that carry us forward. So this is what I'd like to do in these few minutes of speaking with you. And I'd like to just zoom out our vision of who we are and where we are, and put us in a historical perspective, because our current situation is very much a product of our history. And what exactly is it that we are healing from? One of the things that's becoming more and more apparent to people is that most people have experienced many kinds of traumas. Things that have happened to us from early childhood through growing up and finding ourselves, most of us who are involved in this spiritual practice are adult. Many of us are in our twilight years, and so we have passed through many things. And if you look at the history of the Philippines, everyone in the Philippines has been impacted by the history over the past 400 or 500 years, and then whatever was the Philippines in earlier times is still there. And maybe there are cultural losses that have happened due to colonization and the influence of the Western world, the world of Spain, the world of United States, the introduction of Catholicism, and all of these have had their influence, because external influences on an ancient culture definitely create shifts, and some of those shifts leave scars. So there are deep wounds that are there to be healed. We're talking about spirituality. We're talking about the deepest part of ourselves. And we're also talking about the eternal, the immortal being that each of us is, which we call the soul or the spirit. And in our studies of spirituality and Raj Yoga, we become aware of the continuity of life, the continuity of the spirit, and that we have personally passed through all of these historical events that have impacted us through the historical process, and which we still feel here and now today. So what I'm talking about in terms of healing is to go down deep, deep, deep inside of ourselves. Now you will say, well, we don't remember what our existence was like in periods before this life, and there are many things in this life that we can't remember. But what we can do and what we can touch is the impact of all of this on the soul, where you can still see the effect of it in how we feel about ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, how we contextualize ourselves in our cultural, religious, societal, and familial context. There have been political changes over time, all of which have impacted us. Economic changes over time, which have impacted us. And all of these external circumstances leave scars on the soul, which are carried from life to life to life. So, healing now. Why are we talking about this level of healing at this time? And I think it is because we are passing through very special times. The times are not special only because of COVID-19. They're special for other reasons as well. Another major impact that is going on that has to do with the current times is climate change. Climate change has affected the weather, and the Philippines, being thousands of islands, is exposed to the vagaries of storms and typhoons and hurricanes, and these are intensifying, which means that entire communities can be devastated when one comes through. As I remember Yolanda a few years ago, how much that impacted. And it's also impacted agriculture, it has impacted the economic situation, and so many people have had to seek employment away from their homes, which means it breaks up families. And so there is a healing from the breakup of families due to the children not having access to parents who work far from home, and not being able to develop in the healthiest of ways. When there is an impact on the agriculture, then what you are able to nurture yourself with is impacted. You may not have what you need. There may be many difficulties in life, all of which go to make a person feel less than, or victimized, or that maybe it is my fault that things are not going so well and I have to compensate for that. Now, all of these create some or another kind of survival skills, survival characteristics, which sometimes even become character defects. People feel emotionally fragile, and then all of this becomes covered with a very carefully constructed mask that makes it look like everything is okay. Your behavior is perfect, your dress is perfect, your academic qualifications are exactly as they should be. We create a many-layered mask to show the world that we are fine. And yet, there is such a big difference between that soul inside who is trapped in those masks and the external expression that we give so that we feel okay and everyone around us is assured that they are okay, we are okay, everything is okay. But inside, the heart is stressed, strained, bleeding, and so many things have to be suppressed, because if that inner pain would bleed through the mask, it would not look good. So we become very dedicated to looking good. And when this is the case, then so much energy goes into the protection and maintenance of the mask that we become very often unable to be available for our family, our community, our people, our culture, and at a deepest level, our own selves. So what can spirituality do to help us in this? And does spirituality help us? Most people have taken a lot of support from religion, and there are also aspects of religion where we have also been sometimes betrayed, sometimes it has failed us, and then our faith in God has to be maintained very deep inside us, and we have to become very detached from other aspects of the religion where it doesn't seem to correspond with our faith. So life has given us a number of challenges that are very difficult to deal with, and you wonder where to really start. So first of all, I would like to look at the comparison and contrast of spirituality and religion. And I think religion in many ways corresponds to the external aspect of our lives, and spirituality to the internal. And because, as I was saying in the last few minutes, there is pain and suffering deep inside, which is well disguised in our external expression. It means that we don't need to make the external expression more sophisticated. We have done a good job with that. But there is a discrepancy between that good external preparation that we have done and then the depth of the inner being, because the inner being is in a way trapped and almost imprisoned in the need to keep the external appearances in order. So how do we look after the inner being while at the same time keeping all the external things in order, but in such a way that it's not a prison, it's not a limitation, and the inner and the outer world are harmonized and balanced with each other, because it is healthy for the inner and the outer world to be in harmony and balance. And of course, the inner world is deep and private and personal. But ideally, there should not be pain, there should not be suffering. So how does that inner world and how does that inner being come into its power and shine and show through the external mask that we've created, like sunbeams that sometimes poke through the clouds and make beautiful rays of light that capture our attention? What the soul needs is strength. And we can go deep inside and find our own strength within, but our problem, I think, is that over time the soul has become really quite depleted, and our religious orations and practices have not, in most cases, been able to bring us to the fullness of our spiritual fulfillment and integrity that we anticipated and hoped for. And so we need something else. I think what we need is a very close, intimate contact with ourself as it truly is. We must find ourselves. I think one of the obstacles in finding ourselves has been that we go inside and we find our mask, and we think that the mask of the outside is the same as the inside. And so as much as we go in, we still remain on the surface of the mask, which becomes like a barrier or block that doesn't allow us access to the inner soul. And I think this is because the inner soul is in pain, and the conscious mind does not want to go into pain, because that would show through the mask and that would not look good. Yet, it is necessary for us to make contact with the inner self, to make contact with everything that has happened, and the pain, the hardship that has been endured and taken in and taken on, sometimes from very simple, very small things, but which had a big impact, sometimes very big things, and leaving big scars. So how do we go inside? This is really the meaning of meditation. Meditation is a word that is really very popular nowadays, and people will meditate in all kinds of ways, but the meditation that is going to help us is an inner journey. We need to travel within and to break open a pathway through our mask and into our heart and into our soul to discover the purity, the beauty, the wonder, the exceptional power that is there, and to connect with it. Connecting with the self means what? Our mask, our face, our sense of self is quite physical and material, but the spirit is volatile and subtle. It is the core of our heart, the essence of our being, And in order to make contact with it, we need to be introverted, introspective. But when we become introverted and introspective, we see the outside layer of the soul, and we need to go past that layer as well. This is why it is called a journey, because you're going past layers and layers, almost you can say like an archaeological dig, going down through the ages and through the impacts of life, so that we can arrive at the core. And why do we need to do this is because we need to realize that what we are is so much more wonderful than what we thought. Many feel that at the core one is born a sinner, and that needs to be atoned for, and somehow there is never really the feeling of getting free from that, and somehow we continue to do actions which betray us, which are against our conscience, which do not correspond with the voice of the heart. And then we feel that we have again amplified that damage to the soul. But when you go deep inside, you find the state of the soul in its original, pure, perfect condition. And the attribute of sin comes much later on. So for the first step, or the first leg of the journey, is to go deep inside and find that original space. But it is depleted, and it is in pain because of all the things that have happened to us. They have happened to us souls. They have happened to the soul, and that soul has carried its scars for a long time and has been gradually getting more and more depleted. And so therefore, we need to have a direct connection with the source. We need to be confident that I am utterly and completely loved by God. God doesn't look at my shortcomings or my mistakes. God looks at me. Why? So that I can look at me with the same loving, compassionate and beautiful eyes that God has for me. And that means open the heart, open the mind, open the soul to allow the power of God, the beautiful light of God to enter in and penetrate. It is a surrender of all of our walls, all of our attributes that keep us actually away from God. On one hand, we ask God to sort us out, and on the other hand, we don't want God to come too close because He might see that we're not as we would want Him to see us, which of course we are not. But it's rather like when you go to the hospital or the doctor and they say, okay, take off all your clothes, we have to look at you and tell us what's going on, what's the problem. We have to go inside your ears and inside your mouth and down your throat, and in all kinds of invasions are done, which we allow because we want to heal physically. But in order to heal spiritually, we have to open up to God and allow God to go deep inside us, because God's healing touch purifies and heals and restores us to our original beauty. Always remember, if God created me, then He didn't make a mistake. He made me exactly as I should be. And life happens, and things happen that are not our fault. They just happen. And sometimes we don't know quite how to process them in terms of our thinking. And we feel if something happened to me that's not good, then it means I deserve it, which means I'm not good, which means God will not love me. And we develop a faulty logic, which keeps us in a kind of mental and spiritual prison. And so we have to be strong and trusting to just open up that prison, because we do have the key, and let that love and that compassion, that peace, let it in deep. This is meditation, to sit deep with the self and to bring the mind to God and let God touch the soul and really allow that healing to happen. And we must know, we must feel that we are deserving, and we have the right, and everything that is happening for a reason. And it's not for a reason of diminishing me or punishing me. And I remember I was mentioning this to the people in Tacloban when I went there after Yolanda, when they asked me, why did this happen to us? There's so much devastation. And I remembered one of the teachings, which was, it happened to make you strong, and it happened to make you experienced. And to me, this is a very, very profound teaching, and it gives us an angle on all of the things that happen to us in this life, which maybe made us suffer, and which maybe gave us scars. But we are, in a way, spiritual warriors who have been in battle, and we carry our scars proudly. The scars do not mean that we are bad. They mean that we have had courage, and we have faced, and we have experienced many things which are hurtful, damaging. We have been betrayed, we have been diminished, we have been failed by many things. But our heart is strong, our courage is intact, and the feeling of being supported and accompanied by that invisible great superpower that is the being of God, the supreme mother, father, friend, teacher, guide, is with us. And so we will get through this, and it makes us more and more able to be the mature, experienced, powerful soul that He always intended us to be. So I would ask you to join with me now for a few minutes of meditation, so that we can experience this on a deeper level. Music is used in meditation because of the resonance and vibration that reminds us of what it means to be the soul alone inside this body, the being of light. Point of life. I am the self, the eternal one, the immortal child of the immortal Father. I am the beloved one of the beloved light beyond. Let me touch my heart. Feel my troubled soul. Gently touch my wounds and my scars. And open up. Open myself up to that great light. And let me transcend my limitations. All the limitations that were put on me and that I put on myself. Let me be free to be me. And let me rise above the everyday world. And fly into another dimension, the world of the heart and the mind, where I'm close to my eternal companion, my friend who never fails me. My support and my guide. Let me become so focused in my own light that I fall into that light. Into that ocean of light. I am surrounded by that love, that peace. Silently being who I truly am. And gently the healing vibrations touch my wounds. And I become free. I heal. I am restored. And then I return to my everyday state, feeling the company of the Supreme.